I learned not to ever turn my back on somebody.
You're listening to Process Server Daily, the show where hustle meets strategy in the high-stakes world of process serving. From elite pros to the new servers taking massive action, these are the voices of a rising industry. Hosted by the founder of 123 Legal Support, Mighty Mike Reid. This is your backstage pass to building a profitable process serving empire. Let's get into it.
Well, speaking of those kind of rough experiences that we might have out in the field, tell me about the worst experience you've had in the field.
Well, the worst experience I had was in 1988. I had to serve some divorce documents on a guy that owned an exterminating company. And I've had a couple of different assaults, but this one sticks in my mind because it actually put me in the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
I went in 1988. I served the guy divorce papers, knocked on the door. Guy answered the door, said it was him. No problem, took the papers from me, turned around and started walking my car, and all of a sudden I got hit in the back of the head, knocked out unconscious. And don't remember a thing after this except waking up in a hospital. And how it was all seen as the lady across the street, the neighbor saw it all from her window, saw him hit me with some kind of bat and cracked me in the back corner of my head, knocked me unconscious, took my car that was running in the driveway, or partially in the driveway, partially on the street, and went down, took my car and drove it down the street and parked my car and came back up the street. I'm still laying unconscious and ran back in the house and closed the door. Neighbor called the sheriff. Sheriff showed up at the house. Of course, she told him what happened, and they arrested him first degree. They originally had charged him with attempted murder.
How old did you say you were?
I was 19.
Oh wow, fresh.
Cracked in the back of my head. It was pretty bad.
That's terrible.
But it ensued later on. It got a little worse later on. So they charged him. He had to go to jail. He went to prison.
Oh my gosh.
I collected from his homeowner's insurance quite heavily. Believe it or not, when he got out of prison several years later, I saw the same man in Baskin & Robbins. Several years later, he knew exactly who I was, never said a word again. I learned not to ever turn my back on somebody. You learn that at an early age. Of course, I had to pay a price for it. I had to get hurt to find that out.
Well, I tell you, Mike, I haven't had an experience that bad yet, but I've had situations where I heard footsteps coming up behind me, and I really thought for a second, like, could this guy, do? So I'm glad that you shared that story with us, because that's something that, you always want to watch them. And don't underestimate people either, guy or girl. You never know what you're going to get.
Well, and that's another thing. I always try to tell people that, you gotta be prepared for anything that could possibly happen, because you don't know who's behind that door. Mm-hmm. I always tell people, I don't know how many process servers, I see it over and over, that they go right to the front door, they ring the doorbell, and they're standing directly in front of it. There's no way for you to know that there's not a gun on the other side of that door. I never stand in front of the door.
That's a good one.
Adjacent to the door, I knock, I ring, who are you? I say what I am, but I never stand in front of the door, because I don't take those kind of precautions. You don't know if someone's going to open the door real quick, and then they'll surprise, and it's too late.
Yeah, and it's too late, yeah.
But people just don't expect that to happen to them. I think a lot has to do with your manner and the way you talk to someone. If you're aggressive with someone, they're going to be aggressive with you. I've had people where they're aggressive, and I'm talking to them very calmly. I'm so sorry this is happening. I wish I didn't have to give it to you. Unfortunately, this is my job. Mm-hmm. If it's not me, it's somebody else.
Right.
Call the number. I hope it all works out for you. If you act professional, you're more than likely not going to have an encounter. Mm-hmm. You always have those situations. You also got to know your area. What areas should you not be in at certain hours? What areas will give you more problems than others? I usually don't go into certain sections where I know there's gang areas, or late at night you don't show up in the gang area at 11 o'clock at night when the crash units are floating in the neighborhood and thinking that you're some kind of drug dealer. In fact, you're a process server. So you just got to use common sense. You got to know your vicinity and your area on where you should be at what hours, and that way you can maximize your efforts at the same time. So,
well, Mike, that's good. We take the good with the bad, and there's something that keeps us going with all of this. I've had a few bad experiences myself, but I've also had more good experiences than and bad. Tell me about the greatest experience you've ever had in the field.
I've had a couple of them, but one of them that comes to mind is where a lady was getting all her money stolen from her, and they needed to get this guy in an injunction, and once he got served, it would freeze all his assets, and she had lost a lot of money, and I didn't get paid enough for it, for all the work that we had to do, but I had that personal feeling that I just felt so bad for what this man had done to this particular lady or this client.
Yeah.
And I spent extra time. I did some little stakeout. I did a lot of extra stuff just to get him served, and she was so appreciative of it. And so that sticks in my mind. I had several different ones that people were very appreciative, or they felt bad that I had to come serve them, and yet I'm giving them the bad news, and they're telling me they're sorry. You'll get different situations. I think the toughest ones to serve, really, to be honest, is divorce papers, especially when one of them doesn't know that it's coming, and that's where it gets very hard.
Yeah, I've once served a lady at a Taco Bell, and I had just served 3 other papers before that one, and they were just routine, collection cases. And then there's this Taco Bell lady, and I served her just like anybody else, and she passed out on the floor right there in Taco Bell. She didn't know she was getting divorced, and after that taught me to, okay, look at the paperwork, make sure divorce cases, you handle them a little more discreetly, a little more. You should always have discreet, but with divorce especially. So.
Right. And I think sometimes one of the other rewarding ones when you serve celebrities.
Oh yeah.
Especially if it's someone you like, and then they're a true gentleman.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that really do it for you, So, those are the ones that I really get excited about, because I've served a lot of celebrities. Served Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman. We served them. I come in the house, and they want to offer me cookies and coffee and the whole thing. Oh, yeah, they're really nice people.
That's so cool.
But then you'll get other people that are not very nice to sit down with, which I'm not going to name who those are, but some of them are not the most nicest people. They are exactly what you think they are.
That's funny. That's a really cool experience.
Yeah.
Wow. But you lived down in that area, LA and Hollywood, and
it's tough to serve in some of those areas, especially up in Hollywood Hills, and you get in the mansions, and they got the private estates and Beverly Hills, and you got the Beverly Hills Police Department. It's very protective of all the celebrities. They don't know if you're a groupie, or you're a obsessed fan, or you're the paparazzi. They have no idea. So whenever I do stakeouts and those kind of things, I usually call the police department, let them know, hey, I'm going to be sitting on the street, I'm waiting for so and so, and it's always worked out pretty well that way.
And they're pretty supportive of you.
They are.
That's
as long
cool.
as they know you're there, then they won't hassle you.
Nice. Well, Mike, you got a lot of things going on, and so I just want you to kind of focus on maybe one thing that has you most fired up right now. Tell us about that.
Okay, what I'm working on right now that I think is going to be the future is e-filing. I'm big into e-filing. I'm promoting e-filing. I've got people using my software. And the other thing that we're cross promoting is when we're doing foreign deposition, out-of-state subpoenas. Those are the two big things. I think a lot of people focus on process serving. I started to focus on the auxiliary services that I can offer, because one, there's a lot less of people doing it and that are an expert in those fields. So I decided that was a realm I was going to go. Plus, it usually pays a lot more than a regular process. Okay, so like, for example, we consider ourselves the expert in out-of-state deposition subpoenas in all 50 states. We do lots of them every day. They got different rules and regulations for every state. What you can do in California, you can't necessarily do in Texas or Arizona or whatever. So we have all the prescribing rules. And sometimes it's not even by the state, it's by the county. You can go to one county, they have a totally different rule than the rest of the state complies with. There's about 32 different states right now that have the Foreign Deposition Subpoena Act. And so we do quite a bit of those. And the other one that we do a lot of is e-filing. Obviously in California, we don't really do it out of state, but it's becoming more and more prevalent here in this state.
It is, yeah.
In California, as you know, and we do a lot of that. I think last month we e-filed just over 2,000, between 29 courts, I think.
Hey, quick break from the episode to tell you about something that's changing the game for process servers across the country. It's called Mighty Process Servers. And yeah, you can join absolutely free. Inside, you'll get full access to every course, every download, and the educational tools that we use to help process servers build profitable companies. We meet every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern for our live Mighty Mastermind call. Come join the conversation. You can connect with other professionals, post on the discussion board, direct message members, and become part of one of the most engaged communities for process servers. Don't wait. Go to mightyprocessserver.com and join today. Those who get verified get listed and start bidding on jobs same day. Now, let's get back to the show.
What advice would you give to a struggling server out there that was just trying to build his business?
Well, I see a lot of servers, when they first become a server, they want to do it for the cheapest price so they can get the account. I tell people that price doesn't always dictate the service. You can do things cheap, and then at the same time, and then all of a sudden when they have extraordinary measures or they want something done, they want it for that cheap price. You got to charge a fair price to get a fair job done. What you want to do is to say, this is the service I will offer. Just like when someone calls me up and says, I'm not happy with so-and-so, and I say, okay, what's the problem you're having? Then I don't downgrade that at process serving company. I say, okay, I'm sorry you had that problem, but this is what I would do, or this is how we would handle it, or these are the benefits of using my company or my process service versus the competitor, and I'll give you the comparison. And then they decide for themselves. I think it's unprofessional, very unprofessional, when you hear another person, just so they get the account, they'll agree with the client and say whatever they have to say so they can get it. That is not a proper way. You go in, you're energized. This is what we can do. Give me a try. Half off on that first service. Give me a try. See if you like me.
Yeah.
You want to offer something benefit that you're going to do something more than what they're currently using. Otherwise, if you're going to just do the same, there's no benefit.
It's true.
There's people there's three different ways a client is motivated. One is money. Sometimes they want to get the cheapest price in town. They don't care about quality. There's another one that'll pay whatever doesn't matter how much it costs. They just want service. And then there's the person in the middle that you get what you get for the price. It's middle of the road. If they get it, great. They don't, great too. It all depends on the clientele. And you got to know your clientele, what they expect. There's an old saying, inspect what you expect. Inspect what you expect. I paid you for a job. I expect you to do the job.
Oh, that's
if you're not, then you got to make a change.
I don't think we expected any less from the great Mike Kern as far as quotes go. We're going to have to put that one on the show notes. Inspect what you expect. That's great.
That's right. Inspect what you expect.
Hey, so Mike, what's the greatest advice you've ever received?
Well, I'll tell you one that it was. Never go in anybody's house, no matter if it's a little old lady standing at the door behind the screen door. Never go in the house.
Amen.
I cannot emphasize that enough. Never go in the house. I was a young man. My father used to tell me never go in the house. I thought, oh, you're crazy. What's the big deal? Granny came to the door. Well, you don't know who else she's in there with. Well, I had to serve her husband, and he was deranged. I went in the house, and when I went to serve it, handle the papers, he goes, I'm getting my gun. Man literally jumped off the couch and started running to his bedroom. I couldn't get the screen door open. I actually broke their screen door, threw the thing, and ran to my car out on the driveway. And the man standing at the door with his gun.
Oh, boy.
So I learned right then and there, never go in the house, no matter what the person looks like. Even if they tell you, if the person's disabled, bring them to the door. Bring them in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
I cannot go in the house.
For new servers out there, they may not know this, but if they're disabled and you can see them and be able to communicate with them, you don't have to necessarily hand it to them. You can set it on the inside the room or hand it to someone else to hand to them. As long as you can communicate with them, that's the key.
And it's funny. It was just brought up yesterday. I'm down in Palm Springs on business this week, and I went to serve a notice of default. And they have to be served personally. I've already served the wife, but now the husband has to be served. Well, he's disabled. He's in a wheelchair. The lady says, I have power of attorney. I go, ma'am, you may have power of attorney, but you are not him. I have to serve him. She says, are you going to keep coming back? I said, I'm going to keep coming back. You're going to have to bring him to the door so I can see him and give him the papers, and we can be on our way. She says, well, he's not ready to come to the door right now. Okay, so I come back later that night. She goes, you're just going to keep coming? I said, I told you before, I'm going to keep coming. Finally, last night, I served her. She brought him in a wheelchair, and I served him at the door. So, sometimes you have to serve that person personally. It's just what it is the job. Prior to substitute service, back in the 70s, there was no substitute service. There was only personal service. Today, I think process service today take it to another dimension. They think because they go and serve a subpoena and it's for a doctor, for personal appearance, oh, I can accept. No, you can't. It has to be personally served. I don't care what they say. Personal service is personal service. And I have to constantly teach that to process servers. And believe it or not, you'll have it across the state with other affiliates and other process servers. They think because someone says they're authorized. It's like you trying to serve me a subpoena. Oh, Mike's my rep. He'll just take it. Just go serve him up in Northern California. I mean, it's just, that's how ridiculous it is.
Well, we have a couple of doctor's offices that the doctor's never available, and they say, oh, we're authorized, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, I just seen him walk by with his coat, can he just wave at me and I'll call it personal service?
I always tell him, okay, well, I guess we'll serve him at home. What do you mean serve him at home? I say, yeah, he's got his home address. I'm going to serve him at home tonight. So then his home address is going to be public record. Do you want me to serve him now at his business, or do you want his home address public record?
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, let me tell the doctor. And sometimes they get really pissed about it because I don't appreciate the threat. It wasn't a threat, it's a promise. I was going to come to your house and serve you there. You don't want to be served here? Okay, I'll serve you at home. You gotta come home sometime. So sometimes you have to leverage. I've even done that with lawyers. I've called the lawyer where they're playing games. I'll call them up. You want to set an appointment that I can come serve you, or do you want me to serve you at home? Your choice. Just tell me which way you want it. Most attorneys don't want to have any problems, so they'll end up making it where they don't make a scene.
So for the new process server trying to build his business, and all he has is $500, and he wants to go out, what's the first thing he should do?
He's got to build a website. Most important, got to set up an email address. Another thing I always see process servers do, they always use Gmail. To me, I think that's the worst thing to do. First of all, you can go on GoDaddy or any of these domains, buy a name for your company, whatever you want to call it, XYZ process, okay? And then you get an email that's hooked with, because you get a free emails, you get up to 10 free emails with it, put it at mike@xyzprocess.com. Why would you want to market Gmail? I'd rather market my company. So there's process serving companies out there that have been process servers and they don't know why they're not getting business. They don't have a website, so how's anybody going to know who you are? So the most inexpensive thing you can do is a website. And I'm not saying you have to spend $10,000. You can spend $300-$400, build your own, and have a website. Then when you start making money, you build another website. A website is the number one thing a process server has to have.
Yeah.
You have to spend money to make money.
That's right. Well, Mike, I appreciate you staying up late with me here today and getting this first episode out of the way. You know what? You've really rocked us, dropped some major value bombs. I'm sure that the audience is going to be happy to listen to it and re-listen to it, and we're going to share it, and we're going to blast this thing across the country and try to get as many people listenership as we can. Mike, what is the best way that we can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye?
Okay, well, I'm the owner of Direct Legal Support in Los Angeles. We have 4 offices throughout the state of California. You can reach me by email at media@directlegal.com. You can visit our website at www.directlegal.com. I can be reached any way, different shape or form. You can call us at our 800 number, 800-675-5376.
That's a wrap on another episode of Process Server Daily, where the legal support industry levels up. Want to grow your process serving business with the best marketing tools, the most engaged community, and the highest ranking directory online? Visit mightyprocessserver.com. Claim your listing. Join our free community. Surround yourself with process servers who get it and build something real. From the field to the courtroom, this is Process Server Daily. Until next time, stay safe out there and live mighty.